Hello and welcome everyone to the second day of Red Bull Wololo 5 group stage over here on the B stream. Today we'll be taking a look at a matchup between Nicov and Villese. Something that could be super close if you take a look at the screen right now. Nicov 10th in the two ranking positions, Villese 8th. Both of them finishing 9 to 12 in the last Red Bull Wololo. So this could be a very, very close matchup. With me is Ornlu, who will be uh, sharing his thoughts about this matchup in a matter of moments.
So predictable, I guess. But yes, welcome everybody to the B stream for day number 2. So again, this is played simultaneously with the second set on the A stream, just because they increased the total number of players in the tournament at the last minute. So they have another match that needs to be cast. So that's what we're here to do. And yes, it's going to be Villese versus Nicov. I also think this could be very, very close. I think we actually got lucky here on the B stream. But they are already doing their Civ draft. And yeah, unfortunately, did not get the graphics for that. But we will still verbally tell you what's going on. And I will post it again in the chat if you are interested.
Indeed, we will have Acclivity, Aftermath, and Runestones as the free maps to be played today. And for the Civilization draft, we will open with Vikings Magyars on Villese and Nicov respectively. And we'll follow up with a couple more civilizations that Orla will share in a matter of moments.
Yep, so we did have Aztecs, Ethiopians, Cumans, and Saracens all banned. I think Aztecs and Ethiopians, they're just strong Empire War civs in general. Not too crazy to see that they are banned. Cumans and Saracens is likely due to the Aftermath map pick that we saw from Villese. Nicov not wanting to deal with either of those civs on that map because, they're both very powerful.
Indeed, it's interesting to see that now, with Cumans receiving that buff that's actually very powerful for Empire Wars, it's become a common ban. And part of this is because players just didn't have time to figure it out. This is the first a major 1v1 Empire Wars tournament that's played on the new patch. In fact, the qualifiers were played on the old patch, if I'm not mistaken. So we didn't see Cumans being used the way they're being used today in the qualifiers. Which means that obviously everybody came in with some prepared strategies for the event, but maybe they didn't expect Cumans to be this powerful, or just don't have an appropriate response. It's very hard to make something up in like one day of a time. So you just go for a ban in the end because you feel like, hey, I'm not sure if I can have a response to what the Cumans can bring to the table.
And it's just a very tricky civ. Like humans, because their archery ranges and stables cost minus 75 wood right now, or 100 wood, whatever. They cost 75 wood. There we go. They are just so powerful that dropping those buildings so quickly, especially with archery ranges, you can put those buildings down so quickly, and then you can also produce from them constantly. Stables, you don't really ever have the eco to produce from like 2-3 stables instantly as soon as the game starts. Archery ranges, that's a different matter entirely. And with Aftermath being so aggressive, it really sort of lends itself to that play. And then Saracens, meanwhile, you have the market bonus, as I'm sure all of you know. Lots of cheap buildings between these two civs. And you can just get up to Castle Age so quickly, use your strong archers against buildings, and just start nuking your opponent. I can just understand, I don't want to have to deal with any of that stuff.
The other interesting aspect of this one is that Cumans can also afford to go for a stable and archer range opening at the same time. And what this gives you is that you can make 1 or 2 scouts to counter the opponent's skirmishers. We talked about this yesterday. When it comes to the American civilizations, that the reason that they're so powerful is because you can accompany your archers with some eagles that you can make from your barracks. So you basically have an anti-skirmisher unit right at the beginning, and Cumans can achieve sort of the same thing here. They can get the cheap stable up, so they can also field an anti-skirmisher unit to accompany their early archers very early on.
Exactly. It's very powerful with how flexible you can be in the early game. And then you can even add that second TC in Feudal Age if you're looking at a very prolonged Feudal Age fight, which is not too uncommon on these maps in Empire Wars. So that's why they're just such a powerful civ overall. But as far as the civs that we do have, I mean, for Nicov, we have Magyars, Indians, Franks, and Khmer. I see a lot of cavalry civs, We got 3 civs with bloodlines and 1 civ that essentially gets bloodlines for free. And that is lots of very powerful civs, but also it could be a little bit predictable.
It could. One of the more interesting things is that Nicov decided to snipe, or Villese decided to snipe Britons from Nicov, which is somewhat uncommon. Usually the snipe is Magyars. I think if we would look at the statistics of the tournament so far, Magyars are either always banned or sniped because the maps are generally very open in this tournament, and that extra attack on your scouts, plus the fact that they also have a discount on them, means that it's very hard to counter Magyar scouts early on. Plus, they also have a pretty decent versatility when it comes to playing archers as well, so it's not impossible to just go archers with Magyars. Combine that with a very good scouts play, and you get a very powerful Empire Wars civ.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are starting to see the theme between civs that are very strong with archers, scouts, and can go incredibly aggressive. But I believe that the Britain snipe was specifically done to make Nikov's draft more predictable. Like I said, Magyars, Indians, Franks, Khmer. These are all civs that prefer going for cavalry, so you can then tailor your draft if you're Villese, or at least your civ picks, to dealing with at least a more cavalry-centric approach, and Vilese's civs, meanwhile, are Tatars, Huns, Mayans, and Bulgarians. So I think that's a bit more flexible in terms of overall civs. You've got an American civ, Mayans, you've got the Bulgarian civ, which are always a wild card, and then you have the 2 steppe civs with Huns and Tatars.
And you mentioned predictability. If you account for the fact that Bulgarians can achieve something very similar to Magyars, you can pretty much say, okay, Villese said, I will leave Magyars to you because I have a pretty decent civilization to counter that with Bulgarians. Whereas on the other side, losing Britons means that you lose one of those civilizations that can produce units really fast in Feudal Age, because that's the other thing that should be looked at in the Empire Wars civilizations. Which of these civilizations have a production speed bonus of some sort to their Feudal Age production buildings already? So Huns, Britons, that can either produce scouts or archers very fast is something that is really powerful in the early Empire Wars games.
Poor Goths, man. They get that 3rd production building, they get those faster producing barracks, and it's still not enough to ever get them seen in competitive play. I know that makes a lot of people sad, but that's just the world we live in. And hopefully, guys, we will be getting into this game in just a moment. They have the draft already. Maps are good to go. And we're just waiting for them to start the game.
Indeed, we will be starting with Acclivity as game number 1. How do we feel about civilizations here?
Well, I think that Villese could honestly go for quite a bit here. I would imagine everything except Huns. I think you can make justifications for Tatars, Mayans, and Bulgarians for different reasons. Mayans and Tatars for that fast castle crossbowman type play that we see that's just so popular on that map, and then Bulgarians for going for that much more aggressive approach. What do you think about Nicov?
Oh, it's hard to say because, as you said, Villese has an insane amount of versatility here. Pretty much all of his civilizations are good for this map. Huns is not ideal, but the other 3, we have seen all 3 of those being picked very frequently. The other side, I have a bit of a mixed feelings because I don't think that there is any civilization that's like amazing for this map. So Franks, sure. What I don't like about Franks and Magyars here, especially Franks, is that they are somewhat one-dimensional towards scouts. And with Indians, you also prefer to play with scouts. And probably even with Khmer. So on this map, civilizations that at least have the option to add archers is very nice because it's a relatively easy to wall map. So I kind of feel like Nicov doesn't have a clear-cut civilization choice for this one. May think about going for Indians if he assumes that Villese will go for Tatars.
That is always something to keep in mind. And when you're looking at, okay, what's the other home map? We were talking about Aftermath, we were talking about Acclivity. Runestones is the other one, so Arabia. Pretty much Arabia. And at that point, okay, then we might be starting to think, okay, that's where Mayans are going to come out. And then if you're Nicov, oof, maybe go for Magyars then. But it's going to be tricky.
Indeed, and the game is starting, so...
Oh boy. Well, let's see if we can get into it. And we can! Hooray. All right, everybody. Let us go jump into game number 1. One second, guys.
So
That one was my bad.
Yeah, it's all right. We should be in the game in a moment. So
We are now.
it's Mayans versus Magyars. How do you feel about that? Magyars could be a very powerful open map civilization, but you gotta consider that they are most reliant on their feudal age scouts for success in early Empire Wars games, and this map is fairly well vulnerable to counter that.
Yep. We will be having Nicov in the yellow as our Magyars player to the north of the map, just coming out swinging when it comes to the strong civilizations, with Villese in the south in the red as the Mayans. So already we have archers coming in here for our red player. Action starts right away here. Both players going with that archer opening, so despite Magyars being known for their scouts, you can still make archery ranges, you can still make archers, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Is we're seeing a bit of a scuffle here on the high ground. Villese with control of that for the time being. But of course, what we were saying yesterday, what makes these American civs so powerful is that you can just be making archers and eagles.
Indeed, and if it's an archer opening, then it is probably something that favors Mayans by a massive margin, because Magyars don't have any specific archer-related bonuses. What we are seeing here from Magyars is more like the approach that we have seen with Franks in some cases. So you go for archers to force your opponent to go into a couple of skirmishers to defend, and then you switch into scouts yourself.
Exactly. But for the time being, we're only seeing the archer play. Scouts just now starting to come out for Nicov, and that is just going to be an advantage to our Mayan player. And where Nicov can add scouts, we already have the ability for extra eagle warriors to be made to help deal with archers or skirmishers, or we can just make spearmen from the exact same building with the barracks. And then we just have this little bit of a scuffle early on. Nicov currently with 2 kills to 0 deaths, a little bit ahead in terms of that micro, despite not having control of the high ground.
So wars are coming up for both players over here, and Villese is playing a little bit more defensive, which I totally get, because if you think about it with Mayans, you probably want to drag this out quite a bit, because in the long run, your archer play scales a lot better than the Magyars' archer play.
Oh, whoops, my bad, guys. I'll get the scoreboard fixed. Sorry, using a different application. Feel free to blame it on Ornlu. Anyway, here we are. Archer numbers are greater for Villese. And, well, it turns out that greater numbers of archers are better than lower numbers of archers. Who would have thunk? And that is going to be a very decisive cleanup here for our red player.
Indeed, it is a massive advantage, and now the Magyar player is forced to go for skirmishers, but this is why an American civilization like Mayans are so powerful here, because even if you go for a full skirmisher defense, that army is going to struggle really badly against even just a couple of eagles.
Exactly, and now that we see, okay, Nicov realizes I'm behind in terms of archer numbers. I need to just go pure skirmisher. Probably go knight skirm and castle age. That's fine, but you need to make it there first. And if you see those skirmishers being added in, well, guess what? We have another eagle warrior on the field, but Nicov going to be doing the old loop-de-doodle, going to be swinging around, taking 2 archers reinforcements, and we'll see Villese clicking up to castle age. Nicov not too far behind, though.
He isn't. And one of the things that he could do here is probably transition to full knights, because he would get the +2 attack, which helps immensely, and if he gets all those archer numbers ground down, he won't be set back that much, to be honest.
Exactly. Then we will have Skirm starting to pick off those archers. Even though Villese has a massive advantage in terms of just raw numbers, you have, 6 archers versus 3 skirmishers. That's actually not something the archers really love to take, especially with that +1 defense upgrade in. It means that the archers will be dealing only 1 damage to the skirmishers. That is not a very impressive number. And looks like the transition's coming in. We see the second barracks, as well as the Eagle melee armor, scale mail.
Yeah, but this is the time frame where Magyars start to become really powerful against Mayans here, as one poor Ibex is getting slaughtered in the middle.
Aww.
Feels bad. So, you preemptively switch into Eagles against the Skirmishers, but Magyars will be very happy with that, because Magyar Knights will absolutely shred the Eagle Warriors.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't really matter, okay, I'm going archers, I'm going Eagles. Knights are going to kill both of them, especially with Magyars getting those good upgrades. Got Spearmen chasing down Skirmishers, not something you see every day, but Villese now hitting Castle Age. Got 2 archery ranges going, 2 barracks, and we could be seeing a lot of aggression here from our red player.
Nicov can't afford to switch entirely into Eagles, so he just needs to use that as an auxiliary unit, as he will be beating Nicov into Castle Age, despite the fact that Villese has lost 4 villagers in this game, something that we didn't mention just yet.
Yeah, Nicov was able to run in with some scouts to the base of Villese, but that's just going to be giving him a nice little bit of a lead economically, but it's actually not going to be for Eagles at all. It's going to be for Pikemen.
Ooh. I understand the concept, but you gotta be real careful here with the pikeman transition. Because your opponent already has an archer range up, so he could make a couple of skirms himself to pick off the pikeman. And we also have to consider these knights will have full upgrades in a matter of moments. Which means that the pikeman without upgrades will struggle quite badly. He does have scale mail, but it's only 2 barracks versus 2 stables, and you don't really have a lot of pikeman upgrades. Oh my goodness, that's a big hole here for Nicov. That's a big blunder.
Well, that's pretty painful to say the least. Now he's just going to be scrambling to put together any sort of defense possible. The villagers, they are wandering in every which direction. Knights are stuck on the outside of the base. If you look at the military count, it is 26-6 in favor of Villese. I mean, yeah, his army is way cheaper, but this is just a really uncomfortable spot. Nicov trying to get that second town center established, but it's just going to be difficult to sustain knight production with half your farms idle.
Indeed. And this is exactly the time Villese needs to get better pikeman numbers out. And as you said, idling those farms will help quite a bit for Villese here, as he also gets a conversion. Nicov is in serious trouble here. He only has 7 on food right now.
Yeah, it is pretty difficult to sustain anything close to good knight production. Oh, the crossbowmen. I don't think they can squeeze between the house and the blacksmith, but they can still poke away at those crossbowmen, almost certainly. And Scorpion's going to be coming out, but 1 Scorpion isn't really going to be enough to deal with this incredibly large army, as we now have our red player chucking down that second town center.
Villese does not see the gold mine from Nicov, but he now has vision on the mining camp. And look at the anticipation. He didn't specifically see the gold mine, but he knows, hey, if that's a mining camp, I can push that. And that's the only reason why Nicov wasn't forced away from his gold up until now.
Exactly, unless you're the AI building a mining camp in the middle of nowhere. But thankfully, Nicov, he's no AI, at least that we know of. Oh, Scorpion gets saved right there. That is absolutely massive.
That is indeed pretty massive here, especially because that converted knight could have caused serious problems. And now, if Nicov gets to reasonable Scorpion numbers, this could still work, as he's trying to facilitate some counterattacks. Villese, in the meanwhile, is picking up relics, so he's gonna try using those monks to the best effect. Even if he can't fight with them, gets another conversion on a knight.
Yeah, and remember, guys, every knight converted is actually massive, because knights aren't that quick at killing other knights. So as we're seeing right here, any converted knight you just run in, snipe a Scorpion. You get even more value in that regard. And, okay, the other Scorpions will force the knight out for the time being. So, whoa, there we go. There's a 3-for-1 special at the Nicov Magyar Superstore.
And, well, this is where we have to add that while Nicov was microing his Scorpions here, his left-hand side wood line got pushed and he lost like 3 or 4 villagers. Now Villese has the advantage in villager KD.
Yeah, there is stuff going on everywhere on the map right now. These guys trying to outmaneuver each other. And, well, the thing is, those Scorpions with the villagers nearby, they're able to push away those crossbowmen without too much issue. Third TC now coming in here for a red player in the back. And he's just got units attacking, honestly, at 3 different locations at once, but oh, several crossbowmen dying to the Scorpions on the right side. It's just, when you're pushing from all those directions at once, you have to be so careful with your unit control.
Indeed, you have to, and yes, right now Nikov's economy is much weaker, and he's not in a great shape when it comes to his eco, especially if those crossbows getting to the back of the wood line. But Villese never has gotten ballistics, which means that his damage potential was greatly reduced. If he had ballistics here, he would probably be up to 15 villager kills, and at the end of the day, the villager count is still pretty much even here, so even though it's Nicov who has been losing a lot, oh boy, that town center is a little bit more problematic though.
Yeah, that is never really what you want to be seeing. Nicov down to 9 villager losses in this game so far. He is running around to the base of Villese with these knights, but isn't really finding a lot of damage. Oh, that's a hole! That's a hole! Oh my goodness.
That's a big hole, and now it's an even Steven when it comes to the holes, and this is going to be a nightmare to click up because...
A nightmare?
Indeed, a nightmare. Because we did mention that, you know, the crossbowmen have the ability to pick off the villagers from a distance. However, the crossbows can't run past town centers or can't dive beneath them to kill villagers, whereas these knights, even though they're quite heavily battered, they can. And that should swing the villager count back in the favor of Nicov.
Indeed it does. 70 villagers to 64 in favor of our yellow player. Notably, I mean, we have to understand that it is Nicov. He only has double bit axe versus the bowsaw and horse collar of Villese, so his eco upgrades aren't quite as good, but still. Actually, Villese able to snag 3 relics with the 4th on the way. That's really diligent from him.
Indeed. That monastery is a little bit exposed, but it doesn't seem like Nicov will have the chance to take that down anytime soon, so he should be fine with it. And Nicov was also able to save his knights inside the base of Villese, which is pretty important because he can use them to clean up the rest of the crossbows on the left side. One thing that Nicov doesn't really have though is map control. Like all 3 of his town centers are here down in the valley, pretty close to each other, soon running out of gold in his starting base. Whereas for Villese, he was able to spread his economy out quite a bit.
Yeah, at least definitely relative to his opponent. Having that TC on the outer ring of acclivity is always so nice because it's more difficult to raid. Who would have thunk? And especially when it comes to defense, yes, it's really nice to have these TCs close together because it means that your very immobile Scorpions don't have to worry about, you know, trundling very far. But ooh, this could be a couple conversions here in the middle of the map. Indeed it will be, and not a single monk was slain in the process. 5 relics here for our red player, and Mayans, they are not going to be a civ that's going to complain about having lots of gold.
Indeed, they won't. 5 relics is a dream with any civilization here. And that pretty much compensates for the villager deficit of Villese and probably even adds a little bit of an extra as well. Mayans already have a super efficient gold economy because of the discount on their crossbows. Added to the fact that you have a
so much Scorpion damage right there. Oh my goodness. And look at that micro from Nicov. He's able to preserve... Okay, well, that's Caster Curse right there. Still, able to preserve 3 Scorpions out of that when killing, a lot more than that. So many crossbowmen and a Mangonel gonna bite the dust.
And what's even more important is that Vilese's army is a much slower moving. So, not only did Villese lose his entire army here, it's also a matter of the fact that now it takes quite a lot of time for Villese to hit this area again. Whereas now Nicov can launch a counterattack with the much more mobile knights.
Indeed he can. And we see in the booming department behind this, 94 villagers to 88 in favor of Nicov. Yes, his eco upgrades are a bit worse, but still, that is quite powerful. But here's the thing. Mayans, their army is cheap, as we've said several times now. Villese can click up to Imperial Age whenever the heck he wants to. He's got the resources. He just needs to hit the button. And
finish the university first.
Although he's got the buildings. He has Monastery Siege Workshop.
He may have forgotten that he has the buildings then.
Yeah, that's the first thing I check whenever I see someone floating more than Imperial Age resources. It's like, oh, do they not have the buildings? Nope, Villese does. He's actually really needs to click that button, man. It's okay, there we go. It's such a powerful timing that most Archer civs have over most Cav civs, and it can still be enough to win Villese this game, although he is falling further behind economically, as now Knights starting to break into the base on the right side.
But behind this, the gold mine of Nicov has been torn apart by crossbows, and yes, it is Villese losing some villagers, but he's always able to compensate for it. The converted knights are coming in real clutch over here as a raiding unit, and also, as I said, Nicov losing a couple of villagers to crossbowmen at the back as well. So, sure, Nicov has the villager lead, but if you look at the eco upgrades, Boso, Horse Collar, Wheelbarrow available. For Villese plus he has 5 relics, Nicov probably still is behind economically if you look at the big picture.
And I'm sure if we look at the worker efficiency right now, it's pretty even. But I'd still say if we had to look overall, it's going to be something that's in favor of Villese, as he has been overall rated less. It's even a pikeman's going to get a villager kill.
And is that a castle drop we're seeing here? That's quite a lot of villagers coming in. No, just gold miners. Villese was mining stone pretty heavily on the right side, but all of those villagers got slaughtered by knights. But that's an awkward gold mine over here to start with for Villese.
Well, I guess if you're really afraid of getting raided to death by knights, the safest place for your villagers might be pretty close to the front lines, because at least your crossbowmen are right here. But now that Nicov has destroyed that particular house,
he can finally find his way into the eco of Villese, and that could be very painful for Villese. It could have been even more painful were those knights not just hitting the house. And now I see an Eagle switch from Villese. He probably wants to go Eldorado Eagles. But I feel like with the Knights now pushing the Goldman in the front, suddenly Villese's eco could fall apart here in a moment.
Nicov! Why?
What?
Nicov!
It was Imperial Age. So he saw Imperial Age from Villese and he probably said, okay, I'm done here. And there is some truth about that. He would be facing Arbalests right in his face. I'm not saying it's an early GG, but he had some raiding potential here, so maybe he could have tried playing it out a little bit longer. He had still like a 5% win chance here, and in a best of 3, every single game is very valuable, so you really gotta consider when you say GG. He wasn't in a good spot because of that Imperial Age deficit, but he had the mobility, he had the raiding potential, so there was a bit of a hope for Nicov here still.
Yeah, I really do feel like if you're in a best of 3 scenario, you just cannot give up that easily. I feel like you need to push harder to try and get that win, eke out whatever little advantage you can. I mean, if you look at the KD, it's insanely in favor of Nicov. Sure, he was behind economically, but he wasn't behind by that much.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because it's very, very deflating when you look at your opponent and say, hey, I'm facing 25 crossbows in front of my base, and those will be Arbalests in a moment, because what can you do against that? On the other hand, as you said, the eco deficit of Nicov wasn't that bad. In fact, he had a pretty decent villager lead now, and he had the mobility advantage. Sure thing, it would have been an absolute nightmare to stop these Arbalests, although Villese didn't have a lot of siege. Villese doesn't have the stone for a castle drop, so these buildings would slow down the Arbalests quite a bit, buying Nicov time to get to Imperial himself.
Exactly. But, I mean, that is what it is, and that's going to be game number 1, going in favor of Villese. In this, again, it's only a best of 3, and also we have Nicov using his number 1 Civ pick with Magyars. He's really going to need to make it work on Runestones.
Indeed, especially because losing this set would mean that he lost 2. Both of these players have lost their first round sets. Nicov lost a pretty close set to Leary 2-1 yesterday, whereas for Villese, he got swept away by Jordan pretty easily, so for him grabbing the advantage here at the beginning is definitely something that he can build on.
Exactly. But let's see what will we expect as far as Civ picks go here for game number 2. It's going to be Runestones. Runestones, it's just Arabia with a fancy skin. Franks for Nicov maybe, and then Huns for Villese. Just kind of go with the safest picks. At least that's what I would do, because I'm boring.
Probably because you have used up Mayans here for Villese, so that's probably your best civilization pick, I would say, for Arabia. Tatars, they don't give you any specific amazing thing. It's possible to use Tatars on runestones, but they're not particularly considered amazing. Bulgarians will be the civilization most likely for Aftermath, because you want that cheap blacksmith upgrade available for you. On the other side, could you see Khmer being used on Aftermath, sort of just to jump into the house type of a defense? Because in that case, that would leave Indians and Franks available for runestones, which would probably result in Franks being picked. And if it's Franks versus Huns, I kind of feel like Huns have the civilization advantage here.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be kind of tricky. I feel like maybe you can go Indians on runestones if you feel like, okay, they're going to pick one of the two step civs if you're leaving Bulgarians then for Aftermath. But, like, are Indians that great against Huns and Tatars that it's worth picking what we would maybe consider a somewhat suboptimal civ combo? I'm not too sure.
So, indeed, I think the main thing here is that you got Huns that have so much more diversity. Their cavalry play is just as good as the Franks' cavalry play, but they have the option to switch into Cav Archers, something that Franks will struggle against pretty badly.
Exactly. Franks, they don't like dealing with Cav Archers. It's just kind of one of the the truths of Age of Empires, just like Mayans don't like dealing with Huskarls. But we are going to be actually going here into game number 2 in just a moment, and thank goodness they have a spec delay. Not that we're worried about spec cheating at a LAN event, but with Empire Wars, it gives the casters time to jump into the game. So in 2 minutes and 35 seconds, we will be getting into game number 2, and it will be Tatars for Villese and Khmer for Nicov.
So, looks like we were wrong with the civilizations, not because we are dumb, it's because these are both very unconventional civilization selections for this map. Khmer, it's a generally good cavalry civilization, and Tatars for Villese can achieve similar results as Huns. It's a little bit more archer focused compared to Huns, but you can also do cav archer play here as well. I kind of feel like Khmer could be slightly better here for Nicov. At least that would prevent the early raids from going on. Then you would have a slightly stronger Scorpion play against the archer play of the opponent. But I still believe that just as much as in the case of Frigid Lake, Tatars have the ability to defeat Khmer, and they should have the advantage. I believe that it applies to Runestones as well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We see this matchup a lot. Not even necessarily map specific, but it's just the famous historical clash between the Tatars and the Khmer. The Himalayas can't stop these two powerhouses from duking it out, man.
This also raises some interesting questions for the third game, should we go there? Because that would leave Franks and Indians for Nicov, and I kind of feel like that may end up being Franks versus Bulgarians. Who do you think would have the advantage in that game if we would go to the third?
As strong as Franks are, I mean, if you look at any, Age of Empires forums post or Reddit post, Franks are nigh unbeatable. But still, I like Bulgarians. They feels like their play is so smooth when it comes to going for both infantry and cavalry, and they also have the strong siege, and just feels like they're just good against melee civs.
Indeed, they can open archers as well, which is something that helps quite a bit. They have a very smooth transition from archers to stables, and we have seen this a lot with cavalry civs. You open archers and spears, force your opponent to go for skirms, and then you switch to cavalry yourself. So that would be an interesting matchup to see. I can even imagine both players opening archers for the third game. But for now, it is Runestones with Tatars versus Khmer. Game number 2 is now on.
Indeed, it will be. In just a second. Oh boy. Game number 1, a little bit of an abrupt ending, but I am ready here for game number 2, because game number 1 was still pretty close, and I feel like Nicov, he just needs to hunker down and sort of embrace the game and just think of, okay, what are all the things I can do to win?
Yeah, that's usually good strategy in general. Archer range opening for Nicov and stable for Villese. This, at the beginning, probably is better for the Archer range opening. It's very hard to stop 2 Spearmen, 2 Archers from, as if you're playing Scouts. Looking at the player's bases, Nicov has some very, very nice map spawn over here if you consider the fact that his houses pretty much form a perfect foundation for a wall.
Yep, Khmer and houses, it's just that inherent combo that they have. Just the houses are naturally forming that protective barrier, as we even have Nicov building one next to his lumber camp. Seems all good. We already have Villese starting to wall, though. His deer are pretty close by near the front of his base. And I guess if we look at the matchup, we have Villese here in the red as the Tatars to the southeast, and to the northwest in the yellow as the Khmer is Nicov. Both players are fairly close to each other as the random bird flies a falcon in this game. What do you think the fact that these players are close together, how do you think that's going to impact this game, Lita?
I feel like it could be an interesting question here at the beginning, because this means that the player opening with archers has a shorter path to travel. On the other hand, it also means that Villese can hit his opponent really fast with the scouts here, because it just takes virtually zero time for him to get to the opponent's base. Nicov so far is good with the quick walls, and on the other side, archers arriving on time is going to matter quite a bit. First villager goes down for Villese.
Indeed, that is the case. And lady number 2 will bite the dust.
And the wall is still open, and this is why it's so hard to defend against just 2 spearmen, 2 archers. They don't do an awful lot of damage, but they actually allow you to sort of initiate the first engagement of the game. And you see that the Villese already has to start taking the skirms. Even if it's just 1 or 2, the concept of opening with archers here for Nicov is that later on he will add a stable. Looks like he also had to suffer from some raids though, but he didn't end up losing 2 villagers like Villese did. So I think that the start here was much better for Nicov.
Yeah, certainly. It's funny because, Villese was the one who was investing in those walls earlier. He had the even faster army composition, but... Oh, well, rip that gate. But the Leary army, as I like to call it, 2 spearmen, 2 archers with fletching, and a scout cavalry. I mean, there's a reason that Leary's won 2 Red Bulls, right? It is really scary for something that just seems so benign. Those guys getting up in your face, there really isn't an easy way to deal with that.
Archer play will be continued here by Nicov. He's gonna play double ranges. This will cause problems for the Khmer though, because Khmer do not have Thumbreak. And if you play against Tatars that get it for free, all that Villese needs to do is just make sure it doesn't die in Fuel Age, make archers, get up to Castle Age, and his crossbowmen will inevitably be better than the ones from Nicov.
Yeah, that's always the conundrum when playing Khmer. You have the super strong eco, you don't need your buildings to click up to the next stage. Yes, that's less impactful in Empire Wars, but it's still a factor. And you also have the insta-drop farmers that makes these farms somehow perfect. It's just like magic, man. But you don't have the greatest army composition in the world. You just miss a lot of those really important techs.
Indeed. What's more surprising is that Nicov is not mixing in a whole lot of skirmishers, something that he should, because probably for Khmer, the best play here is to go heavy on the skirmishers, because you will have to deal with those better crossbows or potentially cav archers. And oh boy, that could be the first villager loss here for Nicov. He didn't scout the hole on the north of his base.
Oh, yes, indeed that is the case. There's always a hole, man. There's anything that's a constant in the Age of Empires community throughout the years, it's that there's always a hole.
And those are things that you normally pay attention to in random map games because you have the time to look at your walls and say, hey, are we sure we're fully walled here? You send the villager out, see if there is a hole there. But in Empire Wars, there is so many things happening. You have to micro small groups of archers or spearmen. So oftentimes you just forget about this one because there is so many other things to do.
Yeah, and of course these players are top players in the world. I mean, there's a reason that they're at this event, but it's just sometimes not physically possible to be everywhere you want to be early on. Scout is only on 3 HP. A random villager shank or spearman poke will end up killing it, but still, that is a large army of archers and skirmishers, and that's just not something Nicov can deal with.
Indeed. On the other hand, it looks like he's going to launch a counterattack. He might be able to intercept some reinforcements. And considering that Nick or Villese is very heavy on skirmishers, this will be the time for Nicov to add a stable, but looks like that's not going to be the case. Is he going to play full archers here against Tatars? That feels like a risky idea at minimum.
Maybe he adds in scorpions? I mean, Khmer scorpions are really good because they have that 8 range. And in case you guys don't know, 8 range is kind of like the break point as far as Castle Age goes, because it means that you outrange crossbowmen, skirmishers, and mangonels, and also other scorpions. So you really are able to dictate engagements. It's why crossbowmen from Britons are so strong, it's why Janissaries are so strong, and it also applies to Khmer scorpions.
Indeed, looks like Nicov hitting Castle Age just now, as he will go for crossbow Botkin himself. For Villese, in the previous game he didn't go for the fast university play, and it looks like that is going to be the same scenario in this one. Also goes for elite skirm.
Indeed he does. And leather archer armor, oh, that was cancelled, and then Bodkin instead. It is a bit of a more important upgrade, especially if you're not going for skirmishers, but oh, more villagers are going to be in serious threat, and they will all die, never getting to drop their wood off at that lumber camp. Very sad.
Nicov was looping around in a huge arc around the base of Villese here. Villese knows that the army is somewhere around here because he's got some skirms patrolling, and he's looking for that army. And the thing is that he preemptively moved away all his villagers from the left-hand side wood line to one at the back. So he knows exactly that Nicov could push him any moment. Very nice anticipation here. Whereas on the other side, Nicov is going to continue losing villagers to the crossbowmen.
Yeah, it's just crossbowmen with thumbring especially are so scary to deal with. They have that faster fire. It's like, do-it-yourself Ethiopians at that stage. And you have the greater accuracy. Now skirmishers from Villese are starting to take down those crossbows and skirmishers of Nicov. Oh, that is so painful here for a yellow player.
And now, it is going to be full skirmishers from Nicov. You already see that there's a stable up for Villese though, and while Tatars aren't particularly renowned as a cavalry civilization, they do have all the upgrades for their knights in Castle Age. In fact, they even have the blacksmith upgrades in Imperial for the knight line. They are missing Paladin only, I believe.
It's funny, because Tatars aren't really known as a cav civ, but they technically have a more complete stable than any other civ in the game, because you have Steppe Lancers and Camels and Cavalier and Hussars fully upgraded.
And with Hussars, you will even have Silk Armor, so it's even better than that. Nikov's economy isn't looking great over here, as both players are adding a TC. Although we have to add that Villese had a lot more town center idle time. So, yes, Nicov lost 4 more villagers, but the town center idle time compensates a little bit. And Villese also doesn't have a lot of eco upgrades, namely he only has Horse Scholar, and that is it.
It's kind of an odd one to get over double bit axe, which is the more traditional thing to prioritize on anything that isn't arena. But right now, all of these villagers are going to have to run away to a different lumber camp, and Nicov even drops town center number 3 in a very tight little clump. Once again, just kind of like the last game. It does make it easier to defend, but you are lacking in terms of resources in the long run.
Indeed, second TC is up, something that helps immensely for Nicov, just protect the back of that wood line, because currently the problem that he's facing is that his economy is very inefficient due to all those harassment. He's at 55% as opposed to 70%. Usually on the pro scene, 70% worker efficiency is what you expect for a top 10 player. So the fact that Nicov was at something like 50 means that he was harassed and raided pretty heavily.
But we just saw Villese's entire army get cleaned up. Like, Nicov taking a very good engagement right there. And, well, now things are pretty much dead even. Nicov 4 population ahead, villager count pretty much the same. And we're going to be seeing a mid-game that it's just going to kind of go on and not be over in 5 minutes, which is always great.
Indeed. Nikov's farming eco is not something I would call amazing. He had to delete a bunch of farms or just let them expire and then not reseed them because those crossbows are still harassing him. And you asked me before who I think the close vicinity of the 2 bases favor. I'm starting to feel like that's something that will help Nicov, because Tatars want to rely on their mobility either with their Hussar later on or their Cav Archers. And for Nicov, who's playing heavy on skirmishers, the fact that he's closer to the opponent actually helps quite a bit, making sure that he can always reinforce his base or just fall back home whenever needed.
Yep, he's now grabbing the ballistics upgrade, but in come the knights. They only have the +1 defense, so skirms will actually be dealing okay-ish damage to them. They still be dealing 2 damage a shot. Remember that you need +2 defense to make sure that skirms are just tickling the knights.
And Bloodlines was also missing for Villese. He's just now grabbing it. 3 DCs now for Nicov. In pretty nice positions. We also have a Siege Workshop coming up to deal with the Mangonels. 3rd DC coming in for Villese as well, who is going to switch into Knights now entirely, going for the 2nd stable.
Indeed, that is going to be the case. Another villager will get his world rocked right there. And, I mean, Nicov is still in a bit of a tricky situation. I mean, his army isn't that good, is the issue. Like, it's mostly skirmishers, a few crossbowmen, but now we're really starting to look into knights that are getting better and better upgrades. We have these mangonels here, and it's going to really come down to being able to take those good mangonel trades.
Indeed. And there is still a hole on the north of Nikov's base, something that I think Villese have found with 1 knight, and that's going to be useful for him in the long run. So even if he decides not to engage this because there is still the hill helping Nicov, that's going to be something that he could use as a backdoor in the future. He also pushed the right side with the crossbows once again while Nicov was distracted microing his army on the left.
Villese, in both this game and the last, has been doing such a beautiful job of just trying to attack everywhere at once and keep Nicov flustered. And, well, it worked for him in the last game. In this game, he is pushing right now. +2 defense is not in just quite yet, though. And like I said, it means that those skirmishers, they're not great against knights, but they're better than 1 damage, and that means a lot.
It does, especially if you add the fact that there was hill bonus as well for Nicov. He was able to hold this one off, and at the end of the day, it is a dead even economy once again between the 2 players. How do you feel about the matchup of these 2 civilizations if this game goes long?
It's funny because I feel like it's kind of a constant throughout this entire, like, all stages of the game. I like the Tatar army more, but I like the Khmer eco more. Very few civs have, like, an amazing late game eco. It's mostly, like, okay, you have eco bonuses, but they all just kind of peter out by the time you get to Imperial Age. With Khmer, those farmers just trickling in food forever and ever and ever. I'm sure many people will remember the KOTD 3 game between Leary and Mr. Yo when Hera just... Leary just spammed Hussars all day long. I think Hera Hussar spam, but no, that was Leary. And that was able to win him that game, and you can do that late game Khmer versus almost every civ.
That is absolutely true. On the other hand, we have another very good Hussar spam civilization, something that also has a good matchup against Arbalests if Nicov gets to Imperial and starts adding Arbalests here, because he still just ranges, not even a single stable, as the Knights will try to run past and try to snipe the Mangonel here.
Oh, but thinking better of it, going to be darting back, but all of this indecision is costing precious hit points on these Knights, and now the villagers are going to try and come to repair. Oh, the Mangonel just going to try and get a final shot, and, well...
Oh boy. Oh, that's perfect for Nicov.
That is another 2-for-1 special at the base of Nicov.
That was a 10 out of 10 fight over there, and as you said, bit of an indecision from Villese to commit to that meant that the crossbows could pick apart those knights, and Imperial Age will be coming in a tiny bit faster here for Villese as he's starting to add some cav archers, but he's in a tricky spot now because when Nicov reaches Imperial, he's gonna have Arbalests, whereas for Villese, he will need to tech switch into something, and that something is probably just Hussar with Silk Armor. That's his best bet.
Well, he made a couple of cav archers, but he doesn't seem to be making any more, and I think upon seeing just how many skirmishers are a part of this army, it's going to be focusing on the light cav. But even then, okay, you have 46 farmers. That is a lot. Like, that is a lot of farmers, but it's not enough for, like, good Hussar spam. And, you know, if you really want to do well, you want Silk Armor, and that requires a castle, something that Villese doesn't have. I really like Nikov's position right now.
I do, especially because it's 27 versus 5 army. And as you said, the Hussar with Silk Armor will be able to shred this army. It's mostly just skirmishers. But right now, Villese is very far from Silk Armor Hussars. He doesn't have a defensive castle. He is still not up to Imperial. And I feel like Nicov will castle drop him because that is enough stone for a castle.
Well, it's not really a castle drop. It's more like a castle at the front of his base, and just the fact that these 2 players are so close kind of also makes it a forward castle.
It's a good castle. It's going to protect the stone, and it's able to contest this gold mine. One thing that could be problematic is that there's a little hill next to this gold mine. for Villese, and if he can squeeze a castle in there, that's going to help quite a bit, especially because with Tatars in a trap war, that hill advantage could be a decisive factor.
Exactly, and Nicov now going to be reaching a whole new power level as he is getting Bowsaw. Nothing can stop him now.
Speaking of Boso, Villese has even forgotten double bit axe at this point, which
Yeah,
starts to become a serious concern. You can skip those upgrades for a short amount of time just to have a slightly better army, but skipping it for this long, that's not gonna work. It's probably not even intentional, he's just focusing too much on the game and probably has completely forgotten about it.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, Imperial Age going to be in for both players, but the castle being in first for Nicov means that he can start smashing that trebuchet button. And that is going to be really rough. I mean, we have Hussar, plate barding armor coming in for Villese, but those are generic Hussar for the time being, and they're a trash unit. And Nikov's army is, well, gold units. Thus, the army value is insanely in favor of our yellow player in terms of both quality and quantity.
Oh, Nicov, that's clutch. First of all, it's a massive mistake that he still hasn't plugged that hole in the north. But I think he saw the light calf coming that way, and he was like, there might be a hole there. Because the only reason for Villese to attack that side would be if there was a hole. The question is, can he keep those walls up, though?
Ooh. It's too early in the morning, Nicov. Don't do that to my blood pressure.
As you said, Treb's already coming out. Castle on the way for Villese, but Villese decking into Hussar, as you said, he's at 16. But Arbalests aren't going to be particularly bad against those Hussar, especially as long as the Hussar don't have Silk Armor. And Nicov will just probably go for his own Cavalier. He's got all the gold in the world because he has the map control. So he could just match the Hussar with Cavalier.
Exactly, and that's why I'm a little concerned about Vilese's army composition. I mean, he has around 600 gold in the bank, but nothing useful to spend it on because he's, well, just making Hussar. And I don't see how just making a Hussar at this stage is a game-winning move.
Indeed. Second castle coming in here for Nicov in a very, very defensive position. But I love this castle. Nicov understands that one of the ways for Villese to get back into the game would be raids. So that defensive castle will pretty much ensure that Nikov's left flank is well covered and his farming eco is safe.
Yeah, I love how defensive, like, how well postured Nicov is defensively, just really trying to make sure that Hussar raids aren't going to be a factor in this game. At least in the case of Villese, Nicov is going to be probably preparing his own light cav raids and unleash the Hussars! Well, now is the time. No blast furnace in just yet means that those Hussars are missing a bit in damage. The Arbs are able to run back to their castle for protection. One trebuchet will go down a piece, but this is not a good fight for Villese.
This is not a good fight, especially that trap being lost is something that hurts him really badly. He still doesn't have Silk Armor as well. And for now, Nicov just needs to buy time, because one thing that Nicov doesn't have is good upgrades on those knights. Only +1 defense, and that is all.
Yeah, not ideal. But, well, Ram even taken down. Okay, there's Silk Armor coming in. Going to be giving those Hussars +1/+1 armor, so they'll be having 4 melee armor and 7 pierce armor. That is the same as a paladin, guys.
And it doesn't cost you gold. One of the differences between the players, however, is that if you look at Nikov's base, the walls are reinforced. Once again, he understands that Hussar raids are a key here for Villese. He's even adding a stone on the right side. Whereas for Villese, his base looks like a Swiss cheese.
No, it's a Swiss format, not Swiss cheese.
The tournament is a Swiss format. The base is a Swiss cheese. The castle goes up here on the left side for Villese, but he's not making any traps on either of those two castles. Currently, Nicov with a pretty decisive eco lead, and considering that he seems to have the better map control as well, he can afford to spam Cavalier for quite a while.
Exactly the case. Cavalier upgrade and Bloodlines both coming in. And yeah, those Hussars, they're an ever-present threat, right? If you make one slip-up, those guys are just going to run into your economy and kill a bunch of villagers. Even if your Chimeran can jump into houses, they're still going to be doing a lot of damage. But Nicov is just playing so safe, so patiently. He is the one who is getting to 146 villagers. He's almost at max pop. And he's just getting to the better army composition and with the better siege units.
Do you think Nicov could consider adding Halberdiers here? Because currently Villese is full Hussar, and the travel distance between two players is very small, so it's not like mobility would be a massive issue here. As you see, Villese is already gonna have the problem of not being able to access that forward gold mine. It's 4 tiles. He's sending out villagers to the far left looking for a gold mine, but there's none over there.
No, there is not. Hussars will swoop in and snipe another trebuchet, so... I mean, to be fair, Villese, he's hanging in there, but it's 185 pop to 125. And that is, well, that's not good, to say the least.
Especially if you start considering that he can only go for trash units over here. Tatar Halberdiers aren't particularly amazing, missing the second and the last melee armor as well. And if Nicov can secure this forward position, he can also steal a bit of a gold here from his opponent. Notably, neither of these players have any relics right now, and you see that Villese is really trying to find some extra gold on the left side, but there's just absolutely none. One of the neutral gold is right in the middle.
There we go.
There we go.
We are not getting a 2-0. Lita, we have a stream that's longer than an hour. I'm so happy.
Yeah, indeed. At this point, Nicov has all the gold available on the map, and Villese knows that. Villese knows exactly that, hey, there's a bunch of Arbs I can't really fight here if they have Cavalier support. Even though Nicov still was missing a lot of cavalry upgrades. Score was decisive in the favor of Nicov, economy as well, and I think the key here for Villese that just initiated the resign was that, hey, I cannot raid Nicov. He probably understands that it's very unlikely he will ever get through these walls, and that just means that his opponent will have a lot more gold and an unraidable economy, not a lot of ways back into this game for Villese.
Yeah, that, although it was, like, kind of surprising when it happened, the writing was very much on the wall. Nicov, like, around 2k score ahead, and honestly, I feel like we cannot forget that fight at the main town center of Nicov. Getting that 2-for-1 Mangonel trade, killing all of those knights as there was just so much indecision from Villese. It was such a momentous fight in terms of giving Nicov all the advantage to start hammering Villese from the other side. And we are going to that game number 3.
Indeed we do. And we're going to Aftermath. Coincidentally...
Well...
Indeed. Coincidentally, Nikov's team name is also Aftermath, so we will see if that helps him. On the other hand, that's going to be Vilese's home map, and we'll be left with most likely a Huns or Bulgarians versus Franks or Indians matchup. There is some mind games involved in this, but I do feel like Bulgarians might be a slightly better choice here for Villese.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Huns... this could be a Cav Archer map, though. That's the thing. Like, this can be a full Scouts map, but Huns can do that totally fine as well. I feel like you can make justifications for each, but I feel like Nicov is going to go Franks.
I kind of feel like what you have to consider here is how fast you can get up to Castle Age, because as long as you are in Feudal, it is probably something that wouldn't be amazing for Huns. They have the faster production on their stables, but that's basically all. And against a civilization like Franks, that's not a guaranteed win for Huns. Whereas for Bulgarians, they probably are much stronger in Feudal Age and fall off a bit of a cliff in Castle Age compared to Huns.
Yeah, at that point, Huns will just be going ham with the Cav Archers. They have that wood discount. Well, they have the discount on the Cav Archers, and they save wood from not needing to build houses. But it looks like we are in game number 3.
Indeed. And we will have Huns and Indians here.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Indeed it is. Because we did discuss that the better civilization for like a heavy feudal age play would probably be Bulgarians here. For Villese, he goes for one that's a little bit more Castle Age focused, and as you said, this could be a great map for Cav Archers. On the other hand, Indians also much prefer to fight in Castle Age compared to Feudal Age because they don't have any enormous bonuses for feudal combat other than their villager discount, basically.
Yeah, exactly. They are a civ that very much like... I don't even know what to think of it. Indians are just like such an oddball civ in AoE too. It's like In some situations, they're really strong. Like in mid-game, they can be really strong with the camels, but then if you're up against like infantry, then you're kind of sad, or like mass archers. They are the Enigma Civ.
One of the things that the Indians can do really well is counter Cav Archer play, though, so it's very possible that Villese will have to play Foot Archers here in this one. And because of that, Nicov could have some trouble if he plans to go for full camels, because camels will still struggle against Foot Archers, just not against Cav Archers.
Well, we shall see it all unfold here on Aftermath, as we are going to be getting into game number 3 in this best of 3.
Indeed. So welcome everybody to game number 3 over here. Extremely important game for both players, losing their first set yesterday. Now they will have to win this game in order to avoid falling 2-0. Nicov in the left as Yellow Indians, and right side is Villese as Red Huns.
Yep, we will be seeing, in case you're unfamiliar with Aftermath, you have these trade workshops on the side. We already have one taken per player, and they will be generating 1/7 the resources of a Fatoria, so they will give you just free resources, but not that many, and it doesn't cost pop space, and they also do not generate stone. But still, we've seen several games on this map throughout various qualifiers and whatnot. Having those trade workshops, it can just completely snowball games in your favor.
Especially if you consider the fact that this map is pretty aggressive, your eco is pretty easily raided, so having something that just consistently trickles in resources, doesn't take population space, is extremely valuable.
Well, we have the second range coming in for Villese. Nicov just sticking with the 1 for the time being. Neither player opening scouts. And it's interesting because we either see, we see the two extremes. We see full feudal age play, or trying to squeeze out a quick castle age and making a timing attack happen after that. Right now, it seems like these guys are having a pretty standard approach.
Indeed. Notably, Nicov is going to choose to just take that trade workshop on the left side with his army. We have seen some players just marching up with the army, completely ignoring trade workshops, and just trying to push the opponent's base. Whereas in here, it looks like Nicov will prioritize the trade workshops, and so will Villese, who is already placing the third archer range over here.
Wow, that is, I might have Cumans banned, but I'm still going to do the same exact strat as I do with Cumans. All the archery ranges, and this is going to give him, 1, a ton of archers in feudal age, but also just facilitate that cav archer transition in mid-game. And what's really powerful with Huns, I mean, any old school Age of Conquerors player knows that with Huns, it's like you get that huge massive crossbowman to put pressure on an early Castle Age, and that gives you the time and space to build up the cav archer mass behind it.
And it looks like Villase's wood line over here will be exposed to the archers. He's gonna send his archers back here to defend, but I think one villager might go down here for a red player. The first casualty of the game in what was a pretty passive opening, given what we have seen in this map in other sets.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's a pretty standard opening for these two players. No one's trying to do anything too funky, but I think that's in part due to the fact that we don't have Saracens or Cumans in this game, both of which are very popular, and they kind of go for the more extremes as far as strategies go. But right now we have Villese with both of the trade workshops. As the colors just flipping back and forth, it's like one crew goes in the trade workshop, it's like, okay, ready to work, and then they're instantly kicked out by the other player.
The right-hand side trade workshop is steadily under the control of Villese here, but this is where that triple range play is going to backfire a little bit. He is going to be quite a bit delayed into Castle Age. In exchange, might snipe a villager on the right side. Nope.
Oh, that guy runs away just in the nick of time.
That was pretty important for Nicov over there, because so far the game is pretty close. Even having one villager lead is something not to be disappointed about. And it looks like Nicov will play the exact same thing over here. Do you feel like Nicov could go for a cav archer play?
Well, because Indians do have fully upgraded cav archers, and although they don't have any sort of discount for them like Huns do, they have a strong eco bonus, and yeah, sure, why not? If you feel confident that you can mirror your opponent's army and do well against them, go for it, man.
I kind of feel like the reason why Nicov could consider a Cav Archer play at some point, he's gonna have to play Archers for now because otherwise he gets outnumbered in army numbers, as Villese still hasn't clicked up to Castle Age.
And the defensive watchtower will ward away Vilese's archers for the time being. And as you're saying, just not quite clicking up to Castle Age. We're going to be seeing almost an entire Castle Age research time's worth of difference between these two players. And this could just be a massive window for Nicov to make something happen.
And considering that, as you said, Villese is so late into Castle Age, even just 2 Cav Archers being sent forward to pick off villagers could be massive here. On the other hand, now Villese moves in, and Nicov needs to wait until Castle Age to take this fight. He only has 6 archers as opposed to 19, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we were talking about, okay, camels do great against cav archers, they do great against cavalry, but not really so much against foot archers. They just don't have the armor or the base attack that knights do. And that's still going to be a bit scary. Like, oh, it's actually going to be crossbowmen from Nicov. Huh.
Indeed. He has triple ranges, so it makes some sense to open crossbows here just for the sake of having the numbers. The reason why I feel like Cav Archers could work here is because then he would have the mobility advantage, and that could force Villese to go Cav Archers, which would allow Nicov to react with his own camos. For now, it's only 1 villager is lost for Nicov, which is absolutely amazing for him given how much pressure he was facing.
Yeah, but what I don't like about the crossbow play is that it means that you have a long ways to go to take those trade workshops. In Villese, I wish there was a stat on Capture Age that was like, trade workshop uptime, because I feel like that would be heavily in favor of our red player.
And the archer numbers in general is also in their favor, although Nicov will have a couple of crossbows here that could intercept the archers on the left. He will have to use his range advantage, though, to have any chance of taking at least acceptable fight here.
Yeah, those 2 crossbowmen, they have their work cut out for them, man.
Yeah, they're being chased by a nasty group of archers. A nasty group of archers that will soon turn into crossbowmen, as Nicov will be forced to go into skirmishers. That's a problem, I believe, for him right now.
Well, it's just that skirmishers aren't a very scary unit. I mean, don't tell that to Doubt and MBL maybe, but for most people, it's not the scariest army in the world.
University.
Second TC comes in, or no, that's University. I know
Yeah,
my
it's
buildings.
University.
You want to learn close to your opponent, man.
Crossbow and Botkin were still not in when Villese took that initial fight, so he lost quite a lot of archers before that, and now with 2 elite skirms in, this is actually a pretty decent fight here for Nicov.
Yeah, the crossbow upgrade not in, like you were saying, until actually the very tail end of that fight, and that is going to be part of those crossbowmen cleaned up. Just not the entire army there together for Villese. He still has the numbers advantage, and he still has those trade workshops, which I feel is just so important.
Indeed, that's completely untouched economy. Now it's Cav Archer play though for Villese, so this is the time where Nicov needs to go into camos. Nice reaction to jump into the tower here and prevent the archers from running below it.
Bosaw coming in for Villese. Nicov, well, I think we can just cover up the upgrades section on Capture Age for Nikov's eco upgrades, because we all know where that's going to be. I did like how he positioned a crossbowman to the northwest of his gold mine, though, just to see if there would be enemy crossbowmen incoming, and therefore he could react, but unfortunately he kind of needs to react a bit more to the crossbowman in the back of his farming eco, because that's kind of painful.
Yeah, I could have seen Nicov trying to wall off his base, like in between that gate and the left-hand side wood line. That could have helped quite a bit protect the back of his base. For now, Villese is massing knights here as a reaction to the skirmishers. Nicov is missing on that stable just by 1 tile, and this is the moment when he realizes, oh shoot, I'm up against knights and I will need either my own crossbows or just camos, but it's very hard to make camos when you only have 3 on food.
Words of wisdom from Lidacor. Need more than 3 villagers on food to make camels. But very true. And right now it's just going to be stuck with crossbowmen for the time being, and Villese still with a way larger and more powerful army. I mean, Nicov was able to take some good fights, but right now, this forward woodline is under very heavy threat.
Villese already has a 5 villagers lead in this one. Plus, his food eco is actually operational, unlike Nikov's one. Nicov with 7 on food, he's even going to struggle replenishing those skirms, let alone adding camos. And his food eco is just getting torn apart at the back. This is looking really rough for Nicov here.
Oh, we could be seeing a very quick game number 3 as the Cav Archers, now they are bereft of their Knight meat shield, but the Knights did their job. They just tanked so much of that arrow fire. Actually, Villese kind of taking quite a few Whoa, hold up.
Oh, that's ugly.
Hold up.
It's kind of ugly for Villese here, and if he ends up losing this game, which still seems unlikely, we will look back at this moment and say, hey, that was minus 10 Cav Archers down the drain.
I thought he would just pounce on the remaining range units on the hill and just, clean them all up. The skirmishers would be forced to move back, and then it would just be, easy cleanup for the Cav Archers. But no, now he's walking under the town center. Some Ornlu micro here. Gonna be losing a few more crossbows.
Still, Nicov needs to somehow preserve that food economy. If he actually manages to accomplish that, he should be all good, because now it's Cav Archers and Knights, so Camels will perform amazing here. It's just a matter of getting those numbers up, because he's nowhere close to even starting to do that. Looks like he's switching back to crossbows for now.
Well, it's really the only thing he can afford, and he needs to make something. And I feel like Nicov would be in such a better position if he just had double bit axe, bow saw, or scholar. Just those very basic, cheap eco upgrades. Is running in over here. We'll likely snipe a couple villagers. Maybe.
I mean, it wasn't a good fight for him at all. He lost a lot of crossbows running into the tower fire, and I think that's going to be 1 or 2 villagers sniped maximum.
There's the third.
It's 2 vills. I feel like at this point Nicov felt that he needs some sort of momentum. He knew exactly that he was behind. So he was like, okay, no risk it, no biscuit. I'm just gonna go for it, see if I can snipe a couple of vills and swing this back in my favor.
Well, it is kind of what you need to do, and the villager count is even. He's up on 2 TCs. His opponent just now starting to get his second one up. But if you look at the army value, it is, well, almost exactly double for Villese, and it's going to be better in the long run as well. We have scale barding armor coming in for Villese. Just a couple knights will deal with any amount of skirmishers and just tank enough damage to take a good fight. We already saw that in the fight by Nikov's market.
And with Husbandry coming in, and oh, look at that, Cav Archers coming in to hit the back of Nikov's wood line. This is where the mobility of those Cav Archers will start becoming a serious factor. You said that this map is very good for Cav Archers because it's really hard to wall, and there is so much raiding potential and harassment potential with the Cav Archers.
Yeah, and they're just a better unit, right? Crossbowmen are less valuable individually than Cav Archers, so the advantage of crossbowmen is that they're cheaper, and you can get them up and running faster, but that's not really the case right now, and we're just seeing a bunch of Cav Archers run in and snipe absolutely everything. Just dart in, dart out, do the whole Cav Archer thing, make those Roman legions very sad.
There's a Mangonel in here for Nicov, though he pops it out, but he didn't take the shot. He just wanted to wait until he gets to the hill, but this will mean that he can't instantly kill that Mangonel. Mangonel delete trick.
Yeah, really focusing on that delete right there. Wasn't really necessary, most likely, but still.
Well, it allows him to just finish off this army here from Nicov, because Nicov was pushed off from this hill with the Mangonel of Villese. Now that Villese lost that Mangonel, the skirmishers can once again take down the CA here. Nikov's economy is still better, but that's a forward castle here by Villese. And honestly, given how heavy Nicov is on crossbows and skirms, even Tarkans could make some sense here.
I just think that it doesn't matter that much what Villese makes.
Obviously, it doesn't.
Anything he does is going to be better than what, the few stray crossbowmen and skirmishers. No +2 defense on the skirmish means that they will be performing significantly worse against Cav Archers. And it looks like Nikov's trying to go for a counterattack, but Villese, look at the mobility he has. He has 3 town centers in 3 very different locations, difficult to raid. I mean, yeah, they're totally open, but you just need to walk a very long way to even get there. He's got at least one of the trade workshops. He's pressuring at the front, and he's just everywhere on the map.
And you see the anticipation from Villese. In the moment that castle went up, he sent in the Cav Archers from the right, because he anticipated Nicov going back to his initial wood lines, which in the end did not happen. Nicov is just migrating to the right, tries to pick up a couple of vills from Villese, and he actually is pretty successful doing so. It's just a matter of he's going to lose his second TC, whereas Villese has a completely untouched economy with 3 TCs. Villese also has both trade workshops available.
Nicov should grab the one on the right back once again, but again, I wish we had that statistic for trade workshop uptime. It should be at least 3-1 in favor of Villese across this entire game. And
And there's the Tarkans. Like,
oh
at this
boy.
point, Tarkans, what would they give you over knights? They actually give you quite a bit, especially when it comes to building attack. That extra pierce armor means that your Tarkans are even more resistant to town center fire, and you can just take down buildings so well with them. My favorite unique unit in the game. We're going to see it featured.
Really? I didn't know your favorite unique unit was the Tarkin, but yeah. That's going to be Villese taking game number 3 and winning this set.
Boy, oh boy. It's a sad day as well for Nicov. He lost to Leary 2-1 yesterday, now it's 2-1 as well against Nicov, so he never got swept, but he always seems to fall a little bit too short in the first 2 days here. Villese securing his first victory in the tournament.
Yes, Nicov isn't out of it just yet, though. There's still a couple more days of Swiss stage to play, but he will need to win out, I believe, if he wants to advance.
Indeed. In the Swiss stage, if you start losing games, you sort of fall lower and lower, so you are starting to get easier and easier opponents. And let's say that, well, it was obviously really hard for Nicov to get matched up against Leary in the first round.
Yeah, that's rough.
That was probably expected to be won by Leary. Here, this was expected to be a close set, and it was a close set. So Nicov still has a pretty decent shot at, even advancing into the playoffs. But he needs to play crystal clean from now on because he can't afford to let another set be lost.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of there are a few rough edges around Nikov's play so far. Like, strategically, he's there. His micro is good. It's just, okay, make sure you get your eco upgrades. Make sure that you don't lose a unit here or there or something like that.
Indeed. Getting the eco upgrades as well. Also, we have to keep in mind that best of 3 is always very, very tricky. Because there's just so little room for error. Or the Empire Wars gives you very little room for error. Added to the fact that you, let's say, look away for half a minute from your eco, you lose 10 villages and you lost the game. That's 1/3 of a best of 3, and just basically half the games your opponent needs to win that set. So just a small mistake can easily lead to you potentially losing an entire set because of it, because there's just so little room for error.
Yeah, that's just the harsh nature of best of 3s, especially with best of 3 Empire Wars, as you're saying. But that's the nature of the beast, and that's what everyone is here ready to compete for. And congrats to Villese for winning this set. It was a nail biter for sure, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to cast it. It was really, really good.
Indeed. And with this set ending, we are going to send you back to the official Red Bull stream, where we will have the rest of the sets for the day. Currently, they are playing Doubt versus Jordan. It will be followed by Winchester versus Kaposh, Leary versus MBL, and Hera versus the Viper. We will return tomorrow approximately at the same time, parallel to the second set of the day on the main stream, with another set from Red Bull Wololo 5 group stage. Both me and Ornlu appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for sticking around, and hopefully you'll enjoy your time on the main Red Bull stream as well.
Yes, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Second match of the day, remember. Let's go see. Lita beating me to the punch with the raid.